Record to computer. Recording in progress. Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I'm going to go to present mode. Although I'm going to do my best to figure out how to toggle between my slides and also some examples that I want to show you on LinkedIn of really good profiles. So as always, be in the chat. Tell me how it's going. I've got two monitors so I can see you all there. And I'd love for today to be an interactive session if we can. And seeing that it's a smaller group, definitely no reason why we can't, kind of combine the live coaching element that we do with our normal co-working sessions with a module. Today's about LinkedIn. And I know that might elicit some eye rolls from folks. I know that I have resisted it myself for a while. I always felt it was so corporate. It was like, another social media thing that I have to do. Okay. So when I tell you that LinkedIn is critical to your career success and it is absolutely worth the investment, okay, the time, energy investment, believe me, this is kind of, again, coming from somebody who was not at all that person before I saw what LinkedIn could do for my own career in terms of like clients coming my way and also in people I've connected with, people I've worked with, telling me really amazing outcomes they've had from just a little bit of investment in LinkedIn goes really a long way. And I like to think of it as kind of the place it's an interactive website in a sense for yourself, right? So if anybody's ever thought of wanting to create their own website for themselves or wanting to create their own blog, my first response is always go to LinkedIn because the eyeballs are already there. I think it's up to like 930 million people. All right. That's like almost a billion people, to be clear, on LinkedIn. And so this is the place where you want to be visible and you want to stay connected. And I implore you, do not use it only when you need it. I want you to invest in it upfront now because, of course, you're in the position of needing it, but do maintain it past this program. I see that Ellen detests it. I actually love this. So I want you all to tell me all the things you don't like about it, the reasons you haven't wanted to invest in it. By the way, if you're not that person, if you have found it to be helpful to you and you've enjoyed it, I want to hear from you as well. But let's see if out of this, I can hopefully shift your mind, okay? And also give you some practical next steps that will make this achievable. And I've gotten feedback from a number of you, really kind feedback from a number of you that my action steps are quite overwhelming because there's just a lot of them. And so for today, I am going to just focus on what I think are the most important elements of LinkedIn. And so the homework is pretty minimal after this, actually. So this is, as always, a little bit of an experiment with how my own process of sharing what I know. Also, I got some good feedback that the guest speaker we had in 2 modules ago, Rachel, she was helpful. And so I actually have another guest speaker today. Her name's Hannah. But unfortunately, she couldn't be here live. So she and I pre-recorded a fireside. I asked her a bunch of questions that I felt you all might have for her. And so I'm going to actually play that as part of our class. So you can pretend that she's live. And then if you have any questions after, most likely I can answer it for you. But if not, Hannah wants to, hear how you all felt her advice was. And Hannah, by the way, used to run marketing for hired.com, which is a job site. I think it's primarily focused on tech jobs, but these days, what isn't really a tech job? So she's got a wealth of expertise from like a recruitment angle as well, but she's really, really good at content. So we're going to talk about the most important profile elements of your LinkedIn. We're going to work on them. So I'm going to hold you accountable to doing that by opening up a Google document. I'd love you also to be taking out your job posts. Hopefully you brought them with you. So at least one of them, because we're going to integrate keywords from that job post into your profile. And then talking about content plan. I'm checking. Good. Constance says LinkedIn is dope. I've gotten a job through it. The language that people use on posts is funny though. Yes. Good. I'm so glad that people are also going to share some positive thoughts as well. Although again, I always want to hear the challenges you all are having so I can address them. If Constance, you want to give more details about what you mean in regards to like the language that you find being funny, because that I think perfectly illustrates this slide that I have right now up on the screen, which is write like a human, which can be kind of hard when you're trying to integrate keywords from job posts, right? Because job posts don't always sound human. So it's this balance where you're taking kind of a strategic lens to the way that you write. And the strategy, of course, being this is positioned to appeal to somebody posting a job, right? You also don't want to sound generic. That's where we got to use stories. We've got to use examples that are very specific to you. So there's a big editing process to this. The first draft you write is just that, the first draft. So if you're ever getting frustrated with what you're doing, try to get to a place where it's really just vomit out stuff based on my prompts, and then trust the editing process with me, because that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be editing all of your LinkedIns. Okay. I'm also going to take just a look at I'm going to read out some of the chat because, as you all know, I send these recordings also as a video, as an audio file, because I know a few folks are tired of sitting in front of their computer screens, as I understand we all probably are. So if you are listening to this as a podcast, I realized you aren't able to see the chat. So I'm going to read some of the chat. Ellen says, I detest it, LinkedIn. And I know that people who post in it are successful. That way it's painful for me to have to do. It's creating a lot of the same stuff in the feed. Great. So that will be something I want to address when we get to the content section. And I do believe that every single person needs to create some content. If you are in my career path, you of course need to create more content, but we should all be posting at least once a week. Okay. And it's doable. And I hope I can make it fun for you in the prompts I give you. Layla says it feels like work Facebook. Yeah, in some respect it is, but hopefully that means you're getting work, right? And that's good. Eloise, I am allergic to LinkedIn Speak, but I do like sharing projects I'm proud of on there. I think, Eloise, what you're saying, I'm allergic to LinkedIn Speak. Give more details to that because it's probably going to back up what Constance said when she said it's funny the language that people use when they post. Then Poma says it's been super useful for networking on topics outside of job searching, women in professional groups, networking, DEI networking, etc. Exactly. This is, at the end of the day, it's about connecting with people. It's not just finding jobs. It's finding the people behind the jobs, the people who work at these companies. And that's why today I'm addressing LinkedIn as opposed to diving into your resumes, because when you connect with somebody, the first thing that they're probably doing is Googling you, or you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. So the first thing that they do is read your profile. They're not looking at your resume first. Okay. So LinkedIn, that's your online narrative. You got to own it. Okay. I'm seeing some more. Yeah. Great, 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 great stuff. Okay. I'm going to continue on and then I'll circle back into the chat. And then Ashley had some stuff about networking, right? People ignored her, et cetera. We've got a whole module on networking. So today, even though LinkedIn is a network, right? The purpose of LinkedIn is to connect with people. I'm actually not going to be talking about how to do that. I'm really only talking about best elements of your profile and then you posting at least once a week. Okay. So that when somebody looks at your profile, there's a body of work on there that really reflects who you are, the value you bring, and what you're interested in too. And that's what I also like about LinkedIn, kind of back to my analogy of it being a more sort of interactive website. Like you really can showcase a lot about yourself. The question is, what do we pick and choose the things about ourselves that we share? So let's first address the top of the profile. Just so you know, I'm not going to be going through every element of a LinkedIn profile. I have a checklist that I'm going to send you that can cover that for you. And it is true that profiles that are completely filled out or almost completely filled out, I think get bumped up in the algorithm. People have an easier time finding you. So I do encourage you to, try to fill out your entire LinkedIn. I know you're busy, you're tired, and you're over it already. So today we're only covering just a few elements of the LinkedIn profile that I think are most crucial. And you know what those are? It's the top of the fold. When a recruiter or anybody looks at your profile, they're spending approximately 6 seconds on it. The first things they see, especially if it's on mobile, that's what above the fold is. There's only so much that they can see, and it's going to be the banner, the headshot, and the headline. I want them to immediately understand whose problem you solve. And we'll get into details on this. And I'll give examples. Okay, so the banner, my suggestion, it's just my suggestion. There's not one right way to do this, but why don't you have something that says what you do plus contact info? I'll send you a link to a Canva template, and Canva is free. There's also a paid version, but you can use the free version that can help you easily make a banner. By the way, Carrie, I don't know if Carrie's here today, but she's in our program. She's great. Somebody should hire her. she's got a wonderful banner here. Okay. And she made this in Canva and she sent me the link to her template. So I'm now going to share that with you all afterwards. But it's easy, really easy to do. Name, what she does, and her contact info. Okay. Again, 6 seconds that I have, got to capture it all. Or it could be something that's basically a visual representation of what you do for work or something you care about. So that would be here. Jenny, she's in our program. Y'all like connect with me, guys, because I want to showcase you. Look how great this is. I'll have to check with her. I don't know if Jenny's here, but I didn't know. I don't know if she used this in Canva, but you certainly could create. Got her name. I love that she calls herself an expert. I feel like a lot of us second guess ourselves. Nope. If you do it for a living and you've been doing it consistently, you trust me, you're an expert. And look, she's so impressive as seen on, right? And then her in action, or Jay here, right? Him speaking to a whole audience. And then you've seen my LinkedIn. I might show that later, but anywho. Okay. So banner or something you care about, demonstrates your values. Anywho, I'll send you some templates from Canva. Headshot. This is reported by LinkedIn as being effective. So it's not just my opinion, but 60% of the frame, you really want to take up most of the shot and don't have anybody else in the picture. Okay. You also want to look approachable. So smiling, right? I would recommend a neutral background of some kind. So not a lot going on unless it's you at work. And that's important for that, for me to understand what you do. So for example, my LinkedIn, it's me on stage with a microphone because I want to be hired by people who want me to teach, right, at their companies and at conferences. So, but otherwise I would recommend there not be a lot of stuff going on in the background. Okay. Just like a neutral color or just one color. And these days, I mean, it doesn't need to be a professional headshot, but these days we've got a lot of us have iPhones. You can take a professional shot, just get some good lighting, make sure it's not blurry. And let me address some questions in the chat. Mariana asks, what about just a picture outside with kind of a blurry background, like not in focus? I mean, I'll be taking a look at everybody's LinkedIns after you go through and make some of these updates that I give you today. So I could, I'll give you feedback on that because it's not a hard and fast rule. Like if it's kind of blurry, yeah, it might look totally fine as long as you're really in focus and crisp. But the general rule of thumb is like a neutral background. And it's going to probably pop more if you actually have nothing happening in the background. So, I mean, well, first of all, Carrie takes up the whole frame. So obviously there's some stuff going on here, but she takes up the whole frame. So the whole focus is on her. But Hannah has nothing in her background, just straight up neutral. So does Jenny, so does Jay, so does Leah, and so does Lee, right? So I would recommend going for something like this, okay? By the way, here are some other, good examples of another banner that you could create. I talked to Hannah. This is our guest speaker today, by the way. It's Hannah. Something that I really like that she did was ring the bell for weekly tips. So if you want to, and this is a recommendation I have for you all, I would follow people in your field who are creating content that you want to learn from and you should engage with. And you would press this button right here in order to get notified about it, right? So you don't have to remember to yourself, oh, I should go check this person's profile. If you every week are posting something, which I'm encouraging you all to do, maybe even in your own banner, use that as some text reminding people to, and it might not be tips is what you're sharing, could be weekly insights, for example, but I thought that was quite clever. But again, you see she has her name and she has what she does for a living and she's multifaceted, which a number of you are too, right? There's not just one thing you do. I mean, same thing here with Carrie, right? This is her kind of core purpose to what she does, which is the customer lifecycle journey. And then how does she do that? It's through multi-channel strategy and through product adoption. I thought that was brilliant. And kind of the same thing here with Hannah, right? What she does at its core is integrated marketing. How does she do it? It's through content creation and then career growth, although the career growth is she makes content around career growth. And then, and for Jay, it's just a straight up picture here. Leah works at Teal. So, and I'm assuming everybody at this company uses that banner. Doesn't really change anything. I mean, it's good for her because she's producing a lot of content, career content. And so that kind of validates her content. And then here, this is obviously more busy, but why not? I mean, he's taking advantage of all the real estate he's given. And again, when somebody's looking at your profile on their phone, which most likely it is on their phone, you want to be able in like a very quick snapshot for them to totally understand what you do, who you do it for, and how to get in touch with you. So for him, he wants you to go to his website. Okay. All right. But now let's talk about headline. And this is where we want to take some time and be thoughtful. And I'll give you examples in a couple of slides. My suggestion, and there's no one necessarily right way to do this, there's a few options, but most likely you're going to want to put the title that you'd like or the title that you currently have if it's in line with what you want to do moving forward. I know that there's a number of pivoters among us, but the title you would like to do, the industry you want to do it in, what you do or what you'd like to do, and then what is the purpose to it? So what you do to achieve what outcome. I'll give you examples to help that make sense a little bit more. But in this headline, this is important. Use keywords from the job description. So whether you brought it with you today or you have a moment to just pause this video or audio recording and go and get that job post, the ideal job post, right? So this isn't necessarily a job you're applying to. Maybe this job no longer has, is accepting applicants, but it's pretty close to a job you'd like to have. Take a look at the words that they're using and see if you can integrate them into what you do. Use a vertical line divider, okay? And I will show you in the examples that follow what that looks like. And I'll also send you a follow-up with exactly how to do a vertical line divider. So you can see them in pretty much every good profile these days, which is Carrie's, okay? Notice one thing that she has that I did not mention, but feel free to do it. X, Twilio, and Zendesk. Okay, so the only time that I would encourage somebody to include companies they previously worked for is if those companies are extremely competitive to work for, right? Or highly desirable. So if they're known as kind of the Ivy League of the industry, so to speak, that's going to look really good to the next employer. Right? So you can kind of think, so examples here, right? In the tech industry, in what Carrie does, Twilio and Zendesk are hot commodities, so to speak, right? So, but you don't have to do that. And plus, you only get so many characters, right? So you're going to choose very carefully which characters you then include. So here's what she does. She crafting customer first lifecycle campaigns, okay? For what purpose? That drive conversion, adoption, and retention and growth. I'm assuming, and I don't know for sure because we haven't yet worked on this together, but I'm assuming these are all keywords that were in job description she was applying to. Now for Hannah, integrated marketing, social media strategy, TikTok content creation. What does she do here? I help people build careers that don't suck. Okay, so remember my point earlier of the top part of your profile should help me immediately understand whose problem are you solving? She's helping people, okay, build careers that don't suck. So solving the problem of sucky careers. By the way, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, they're repeating themselves, good. We actually want to have a repetition of keywords throughout our profile. So that's actually a good thing. It solidifies that to the recruiter, again, who's looking at this for 6 seconds, that you know what you do. And also you're coming up in that algorithm, in that filter. Jenny does a couple of different things here, right? So like her day job is driving B2C revenue and growth. But she also, her side hustle is being a keynote speaker. For what purpose? Empowering women in AI. By the way, these are not all like quote perfect examples. They're just hopefully jogging your brain to start getting excited about what you might write. Now, I included Jay's. I thought this was very interesting. Founder of Creator Science. He explains what it is, which is studying creators, running experiments, and sharing what I learned. He then says 58,000 readers and counting. So he used a metric that was impressive. If that makes sense for you. So for example, if you're a fundraiser, let's say you work in development at nonprofits and you've raised over $1 million in your career. Hey, maybe I'd suggest you use that in your headline, right? You can, again, these are the vertical line dividers. So you can say I help nonprofits raise money, vertical line divider, raised over $1 million to date or something, And you can write even more because there weren't even enough characters. But I like using a metric if it is impressive and is what you want to do moving forward, right? So for Leah, she currently employed, so VP marketing at Teal. Okay. Using brand strategy, social media, and content marketing to empower others in their careers. Again, keywords probably here in that job post that she, if she was applying brand strategy, social media, and content, whose problem is she solving, right? And well, empowering others in their careers. If let's say she only was helping people in tech, right? Then she would say empowering the people, others in their careers, and then maybe she would have a vertical line divider and just say tech or something. Now, for Lee, it just shows how much you could write in the headline. And I don't think it needs to be any shorter or any longer. There's no advantage to either. It really is just being careful with every word that you choose. So we know exactly what he does. He's a high performance leadership coach. Then he's giving a sense, I think, of his personality, right? Unlock your leadership brilliance, loving husband, dog dad, GP and USA cycling champion. So you get a little more sense of his personality there. So here are more examples. Two of them you already saw, but I added another one because it includes more specifics of the kind of industries that they help. And then here's an example of a metric, right? They made 500 hires in less than 2 years. Again, depending on what you do for a living, might not be relevant, might not be the thing you want to include, but give it some thought. So this is your turn. And I'm gonna be taking a look through. Nice, Carrie. Carrie, I'm so glad you're here. And I told you I was gonna be giving you a shout out. I think your banner and your headline's very good. Oh, and you were in a Starbucks. That's so funny. Okay, so this is your turn. This is where I want us to be interactive today and not just me talking. So we're going to start with the targeted title that you'd like, or if you're currently employed, I guess you'll use your title. Think about what you do at your core, especially if you do a number of things, right, to the point of like brand strategy, social media, content marketing, right? But like, what's the through line also with all of them? Who do you do it for? Which could be what kind of companies you do it for. It could also be what kind of customers or clients you do it for. So that's on you, if you want it, which one ever reflects more of how you want to present yourself. In that work that you do, you're helping them achieve what outcome? What's the point to the work that you do? And then after you write that, do take a look at your job post if you have it and see if it already reflects those words or if there's any more that you can integrate. The time that we're spending today to work on this, it's not going to be your perfect version. This is just for you to get started so that after class, you can work on it on your own and you can share it with me. So take some time right now and ask any questions as you have them. And also feel free to write it out in a document. I mean, I encourage you to write it in a Google Doc because you're eventually going to be sharing all this with me. You might want to share everything before you actually update your LinkedIn. And so I can make edits in the Google Doc very easily. So go ahead and do that. And then feel free to, post it in the chat when you're ready. And we can all take a look and see how does it compare to these good examples that we have right here. In the meantime, I'll take a look at the chat. Homa had a good point. She referred to the banner as kind of a business card. Yeah, that's true. That's exactly it is the business card. Brilliant. Yeah, and also the comment on love how Jenny used emoticons for growth in her headline. Yeah, I mean, again, it takes up space. So I love the use of emojis. It really livens up things and, draws your attention and, spaces stuff out. But if there's other language you can use, that's going to help bump you in the algorithm. So just make sure you've said everything you need to say. And if you still have space, then I would use the emojis for sure. Yeah, Ellen, I haven't found the through line. I'm here. Yeah, and I know I owe you a follow up on that through line. Right off the bat, I already know what your through line is. So, Ellen, or I think I remember what I think your through line is. Isn't one of the through lines optimizing? And I have to articulate this a little bit better, but like you see the holes in why something is not working. Like you're taking fragmented pieces and you're able to bring it all together. And I might do a little screen share of a back and forth on Ellen's stuff. Because I have to go through her case studies, and I might do a recording on my own, walking through her case studies and showing the through line. But yeah, synthesizing. Yeah, because I remember in those case studies, in these examples you were giving me, Ellen, there were like the problem that the company had was like disjointed communication, lost opportunity because of it, outdated things, and you were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So you came at it with a really good perspective for how to make things work better together so that more to increase employee satisfaction or whatever. Like, that's when the keywords come in. But it was being able to see the gaps in how the communications was being run. I think that there's that. And then at the next company, yeah, there's like two through lines, I think. And that's why, fortunately, in the headline, it doesn't have to be that short, So you don't have to boil. It's like, I only do this one thing. Like you've seen in these other examples, using brand strategy, social media, content marketing, they're doing a number of things. But ultimately, though, okay, to empower others in their careers or helping startups hire at scale. Well, let's use more of these. Crafting customer first lifecycle campaigns that drive conversion, adoption, and retention growth. Yeah, I really liked Carrie's. So she's not telling you how she does it exactly. I mean, I guess a little bit up here, right? Multi-channel strategy and product adoption, but this is more like the things she works on for what purpose, which is to drive conversion, adoption, and retention growth. Eloise says, I love these. And by the way, for those who joined a little bit late, I'm reading out the chat as best as I can because I know there's a number of you who are listening to this as if it were a podcast because I send the audio file. I love these examples because they show you don't need just one clear quote job, and you can use several keywords and pieces to make up what you do. Something I've struggled with moving around in different roles, but this is helping me tell a story about who I am through all the little disparate pieces. Totally. And we're also going to get really good at this, or we have to get really good at this when it comes to our cover letter and our interview prep, because that is the function of a cover letter and interview prep. It's contextualizing your career choices, your career arc. Which if Lee wants to jump in at all today, because I know she had an interview where she got grilled on all of her, jumping around to different companies. And she was unfortunately it was because of downsizing and marketing and design tends to be the first people that go. And those also tend to be women, having to explain all that, right? That was not her choice, but you have to be able to spin it as best you can in a quote positive way. And to me, it's all about how did you grow? So how did each role, what did you learn skill wise, industry wise, about yourself, and how did that then evolve to the next role or get built upon in the next role? But we're not there yet. This is just pulling out the keywords from all the jobs you've had, putting them in the headline, wrapping it up in a bow with what do you do, who is it for, and why? Like, what is the outcome that you're hoping these people, these companies achieve? Great. Okay, so Poem, I'm going to take a look and do let me know if I am horribly mispronouncing your name, and I apologize. Okay. Proposed headline, Director of Engineering. Love that. Love her putting a director role in. It shows whether or not, I don't know if she already is a director of engineering, but it shows that that's what she wants. There is always an opportunity to do more together. Okay. I use project management tools and leadership coaching so cross-functional teams can bring products to market successfully, quickly, competitively. Not sure in the final word choice. Yeah, and I'm not sure in the final word choice either because I want to take my time to edit this. Okay. My only thing here, so I'll tell you right now what I really like. Project management and leadership coaching. So those are probably two keywords. I want to make sure that there's no others that you should be using based on the work that you want to do. You can feel free to jump back in the chat or unmute. So cross-functional teams giving products to market. Okay, great. I think I would probably, I don't know if this is at the max character line, and if so, then I would get rid of there's always an opportunity to do more together. Only the reason there is, you only have so much I want to know what industry you're in, because director of engineering could mean could mean different things to different people. So if it's, software engineering, tech engineering, I don't think it is, right? So what industry are you in? It's probably more important than anything else, to be honest. So keeping those vertical lines and just put the industry. And then products to market, I might now push back on the next point. Why? Like, to do what? And maybe you're open to working on any kind of product. But there could be a next achievement to that. So be curious what it is. But do tell me, and then there's always an opportunity to do more together. I think you included that because it's kind of your ethos. And that's a value statement about you, and that is incredibly important for people to know. But good news is that can go in your about, right? In that summary section, which is the next thing that we're going to cover. But I bet you have, I kind of feel like you've had some metrics you maybe could share, possibly. So that's why I want, hopefully you all have worked on your case studies and really thought about the impact that your work has had. Because if you have anything like my example before of you've raised X amount of dollars or whatever, there could be something there that you include. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've done ERG work, or you've been, involved in the Women's Employee Resource Group. And so I would get rid of like the ethos there. There's always an opportunity to do more together. You can show that. You don't, like, you're saying your values, but let's show your values. Okay. Show instead of say. And the way you can show your values is quick example of how you participate in your ERG or something. If that's a thing that's important to you. And then in terms of like when you asked about the language of successfully, quickly, competitively, again, I want to do some thoughts on it, but I would cross-reference this with those job descriptions that you brought, or the ideal job post that you would look for, and see if any of those words have been used. And if so, are any of them used more often? So if you are seeing the word competitive or something, that might be a word to include. And also putting yourself in the shoes of the person reading this. So what do you think would be most important for them to know about you? Okay, headline, Lee, visual designer, yeah, creative strategist, great. Passionate about brand, presentation, and production. I help brands visually come to life. Awesome. I'm going to still push you for the next level. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? This is like my favorite thing, because and it's not just you, this is all of us. We all state what we do, but why? Why did the company employ us to do this? What was the end game for them? Which I'm going to really push us when we get to the work experience section. So just something to think about. Nice. Okay. So Poma says there's always an opportunity as a hashtag I've used under my posts and personal brand so far, and how I overcome challenges and hurdles. This is definitely something you're going to flesh out in the about section. Okay. But again, keep in mind for the headline, these are just keywords that help get you into the algorithm. And when a recruiter is taking freaking 6 seconds to look, like, I need them to see that you're impressive first and foremost. So not necessarily, not something that they're now going to have to think about. You have to just be so obvious to them about what you're about. And your expression requires a little bit of thought. What if you're in one industry but want to explore another industry? Hey, since you get to use these vertical lines, why don't you put that industry that you want? So if you wanted to, let's say you're not burnt out on healthcare yet, Mariana, put healthcare, vertical line divider, and then put the industry that you want to be in. Or don't put healthcare. If you don't want to be in healthcare anymore, do not put that in your headline. Okay. Don't put anything. Try to not put things in your profile that you don't want to do moving forward, with the exception of obviously your work experience. Okay. But we can demonstrate how things are transferable in the about section. But again, in the headline, I immediately need to understand, that you make sense for me. So, whose problem do you solve? But take out the industry if you don't want to work in the industry. Fiona is director of operations and logistics, creative problem solver, optimizes internal systems for growth. Great. I love that. That's pretty good. I don't remember. Gosh, I should know this off the top of my head, and I have written it down many times. How many characters do you have for the headline? I don't remember. Let's Google it. Either way, why don't we just maximize it? So Fiona, if you haven't used up all of your characters yet, why don't you add something else too? Again, pushing you to look at the job description. If there's anything else. Otherwise, this might be where you could show some of your personality. So remember that example here of, loving husband, dog dad, whatever. Like, I know for you, you are really talented, you're a talented artist. And you're like a lover of, fine art, whatever. Like, there could be something there that's going to signal to the person reading it that we have that in common, right? You would be a good culture fit. Okay, great. Eloise said content strategy, brand marketing, creative lead, shaping brands and creating distinctive narratives through multidisciplinary storytelling. Great. Love it. Curious. So, Eloise, I know you've done video, so I don't know if that was a choice to not include it. You might want to, otherwise. Okay, thank you. LinkedIn headlines have a maximum character limit of 220. Yeah, please don't judge me actually feel free to judge me for not knowing that. I forgot. Yeah, you might be running out of room. I'm not sure, but I will be editing all of yours. Okay, let's move on to the about section here. And by the way, I don't want to edit anybody's stuff until you have updated it. Okay. So I don't want to edit things that today is stuff that you have, because I know you're going to already improve it, and let's not waste, both of our times here. So, I'm going to challenge you all in the next 7 days to have completed all of these, but you'll get you'll get your little next steps. So the about section, sorry, that's the summary. It's underneath. It's a snapshot of who you are and the value you bring, contextualizes your career arc, and has a clear call to action. There again is not one way to do this. I think there's no right way to do this. However, there is definitely a wrong way to do this, which is having just blathering on about things. To me, we got to make it really structured with lots of paragraph, spaces between paragraphs, very tight. I love bullet points. And there is a reason for every single thing that you put on here. These are some 5 ways I like to structure an about, and I'll go through them in the next slides. We've got the opening, we've got opportunities, personal trivia, expertise, and a closing. Again, it's just my one example. There are many really great ones out there, and I'm going to show you some in just a minute. So to me, the opening should make it very clear to your target employer how you can help them, okay? It's basically your headline. It's just a little more detailed, okay? So you can flesh out what you've put in the 220 characters in a lot more. By the way, I believe for the about section, it's 2000. So a way to structure it is I help who, all right? So what kind of companies and or clients, customers achieve what outcome, okay? So that they can, for what reason? Right? Again, like what is the point to the work that you are doing? Then maybe another sentence with more specifics about how you do it. These are the various functions of your job. And this is when I want you to cross-reference with that job post, right? So, okay, we know that you help startups, you raise money for startups you raise money for nonprofits, so that they can continue to fund, to increase their programming to help. And your specialty is, for me, when I did nonprofit fundraising, was helping kids get into college, right? Like kids who were, inner city kids to get into college. How did I do that? Well, it was through, and then for me, I was running a junior committee, I was a board or through grant proposals. It was right. So this is where maybe you've got 5 things that you do within a job. It's totally fine. I would limit this opening to 3 sentences, right? 3 or 4 sentences at most. Okay. Then I would do a space. I'm going to edit all this on your Google Doc, but there's a compelling anecdote that illustrates kind of why you do this work. I would say this is a time to put it. Okay. So if you or you have kind of a funny story too, it could be like, I accidentally got into this career, or I won a contest. And if there's something that will grab my attention, that's the point to the opening. I immediately understand what you do, who you do it for, but also I want to be incentivized to keep reading. And the way that you can help incentivize me is to give me something catchy. And that is either my heartstrings, you're pulling on my heartstrings because, you're motivated to do this work. For example, my son's nurse, I asked her how she became a pediatric nurse. Her brother broke his neck at age 15 playing hockey and became a quadriplegic. And that's why she's a nurse. God damn, I hope she puts that on her LinkedIn. I get chills, right? Her why, so important. Maybe you don't have the heartstring story, and that's totally fine. You have a kind of funny or random story. Put that in there. Just 2 sentences, 3 sentences, max, all of this. Oh, good question, Layla. Thank you. First or third person. I like to say I. I think it's weird when people speak themselves in third person, with the exception of maybe a website. I think that might be okay in a website because I'm realizing, nope, my website says I'd say, I was just like, I think at one point maybe my website said Claire, but ladies get paid would refer to Claire. But my own personal website, I say use I, right? Next section. Okay. So you got the opening section of your about. Next section. This is a little bit tricky if you are stealth looking for work. So we got to think about ways that we can say the opportunities we want without being like, I am looking for a job, which maybe we can all, in the chat section here, brainstorm with each other. But I think it would be wonderful if you are just straight up with me, the person reading it. How do you want them to view your profile? Okay. And if you don't want to say, I'm looking for a job, just talk about the kinds of people you want to connect with or challenges that you like to work on, right? It's again, letting the person know that they are in the right place when they look at your profile. I see what this person is about. Okay. Then if you're a pivoter or if you've had a nonlinear path, this might be an opportunity to explain in a couple of sentences, just give them more details. Okay. So for every single person here, describe the kinds of opportunities you're looking for, challenges you'd like to tackle, or people you want to connect with. You have to do that. But the next thing, if you're a pivoter, explain in a few sentences why you're moving in this new direction and how your skills are transferable. If you're somebody who's had a really wound about career path, call it out. Had a really, nonlinear career path that I'm proud of, sometimes can make it a little confusing for people to understand what I'm all about. The through line is simply put, the through line is this. 1, 2, 3, just straightforward. You have the rest of your profile to go into detail. So I don't need you to be super verbose here. But I want you to acknowledge it. Okay. Especially because it's going to make you interesting too. Also, now in your turn, and I'm only going to spend a couple of seconds on this one, a couple minutes on this one, because I really want to get into the rest of the about and the work experience. But do think through the lens of who you want to appeal to and just speak directly to them. I mean, imagine them right in front of you. So, of course, kind of the 3 buckets of people that you're appealing to are potential employers, sponsors, right? So that's person of influence. And in the networking module, we'll go over how to reach out to them. And then peers too. Anyone who can give you advice, opportunity, and kudos, Talk to them directly, talk to them like a real person. Let's just see. So Carrie said, I struggle with this section. I'm assuming you're talking about the about section. And I think my profile would be stronger if I had it. Everybody struggles with all of this. Let me tell you, we're all too close to ourselves. And it is just kind of an odd experience to have to sell ourselves. It just is. Doesn't come naturally to most. And then you have the added pressure of needing a job on top of it. But take a second here to reflect on these prompts and then ask me questions before I move on. So I don't want to leave anyone behind, but we got some more stuff to cover. Any tips in talking like a real person? Lol, I sometimes get too professional. Yeah. And I know that it's rough because I'm like, compare it to a job description and integrate keywords. How the heck do you sound like a real person? To me, it always starts with just speaking. It's not writing, because when you're writing it out, there's something, at least for me, I have to like write it really well, or it has to, it sounds, when you're reading a book, you know the difference between books you read where you're like, wow, that sounds like a person talking. Okay. Chances are they actually just spoken to a microphone. And I've said that before. It's a really great way of getting things out. Go to otter.ai. I believe it is free. And so you can just speak into it and it immediately transcribes what you're saying. Absolutely start there. That's how I wrote Ladies Get Paid. I also visualized the person. Might be helpful to visualize a friendly face. So if you have an old boss you really liked, right? Somebody in the past who hired you, maybe imagine talking to them versus picturing like a recruiter. Okay. That's going to make you nervous. Let me put otter.ai. And by the way, Ellen, you privately DM me, which maybe you meant to do, but if you wanted to do it in front of everybody, you could just copy and paste because I think that's really good, your headline. Otter.ai for Ashley. So Ellen's, and then Google Documents lets you turn on vocal transcription directly. Tools to voice typing. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So Ellen's headline is Creative Architect to Compelling Narratives, Strategy Innovator, Inspired Solver of Complex Communication Challenge. Ooh, okay. I really like Inspired Solver of Complex Communication Challenge. It's really excellent. I also like Creative Architect, but my only concern is Architect going to now in the algorithm show it's going to get recruiters for architecture firms seeing what you do. So that I like that phrase because knowing now what you have done for these companies, that makes a lot of sense. You may want to use that in your about, but again, just be careful because every word you use is being filtered in the algorithm, and it's now going to attract maybe the wrong recruiters to you. So I'm not sure on that one. You might want to think about to what purpose, right? Again, by like, okay, so solve complex communication challenges, but why do we need to solve complex communication challenges? What does that do for companies? I also, like knowing your case studies a little bit better, you have some impressive metrics, I think. Maybe you want to include. I'm not sure. I can't remember if you did or not, but don't be afraid to that example before, right? Of, this person made 500 hires in less than 2 years. There could be something there for you all. Great. Okay, Lee's updated. Designer, creative strategist, passionate about brand, presentation, and production. I help businesses make memorable visual impacts. Great. Yeah. Only thing is, from a quick snapshot, I do wonder if businesses, I do think that maybe you work with small businesses. That's what it makes me think of, right? A bit. Um, so instead, I'm just totally making this up, Lee, but I help make memorable visual impact. I'm just thinking about, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. To increase to increase growth, right? Like why, what's the point of increasing it? What's the point of your work in helping the business? Okay. But let me just move on to the other ones. This is all really good. And I'm going to work on each one of you in edits. And by the way, that's not part of like the actual one-on-one. I'm going to do that outside of them. But it's memorable visual impact so that they can what? All right. Okay. All right. next point here. Okay. So you've had your opening here, which, who do you help and why, and why, how you got into the industry, if that's, compelling. Okay. What are you looking for? All right. Now, I would love for us to experiment with a little section, just a couple of bullet points framed as things to know about me or proudest career life moments. Or you could even just say personal trivia, like show a little bit of your personality. The point to me of this section, and by the way, section meaning underneath, we're still talking about in the about, but this part, which is its own paragraph, I want you to show the following things to the hiring manager because I want you to compel them to want to hire you. And by the way, or to keep looking at your profile. What's going to compel them to want to hire you? You can do the work. This is when you're going to look at the job post and you're going to say, all right, based off of the responsibilities and skills required, do I have them? What examples can I use here? You also want to immediately show that you share their values and that you're enjoyable to work with. That means you care about your work. You have a personality. You want to show them that you're going to have a minimal learning curve when you're hired. So think of examples of how you've been a fast learner, how you're a curious person. You also want to show them that you are a good long-term investment. How do you do that? Think of examples in which you were a problem solver, self-motivated, growth-oriented, particularly around the business bottom line. So a good prompt to think of this is go through each of these bullet points right here. Checking the job post, looking at the skills, thinking about things that are important to your values, thinking about examples of being a fast learner, curious, all right, problem solver, all these things I put here. Can you give me maybe 3 to 10? Okay, so 10 at most. Don't feel like you have to, but let's just start with 3. So if it said things to know about me, let me give you an example, guys. Something like, and this is not a true example for me, but I am extremely detail oriented. I once spent 10 days or 10 hours gluing 7,000 sequins to my daughter's costume. Okay. So what I did in that is I showed my personality a little bit. I have a daughter, care about my daughter, 7,000 sequins. Okay. First of all, that's quantified. So that's kind of cool. I'm detail oriented, right? So I'm showcasing this important aspect of how I work and who I am through a little anecdote. The story. Again, this is all about maintaining somebody's attention. They've got 6 seconds. They're looking at your stuff. Oh, okay, I want to keep scrolling. I want to know who this person is. And not only that, I want to hire them. I want to invest in them, right? So I love this framing it again as things to know about me or proudest career life moments or a little trivia, just a couple of bullet points of what you feel like best demonstrate that you can do the work, you share their values, you're going to have a minimal learning curve, and that you're a good long-term investment. Do you have to include all of this? No, but this is my suggestion for making an about section that isn't so much that LinkedIn speak and is just showing them right off the bat, up front, what you're all about. Yes, Mariana, I can finally brag about being the MVP at my high school field hockey team, and my initials are MVP. Yes. And we could get kind of dorky about this too, because we can always edit it later, but you might put that as like trivia about me, things to know, right? You put that, and then in parentheses, why don't you write out, tie it somehow to what you do now or something that's important to you. So parentheses, like, yep, like still incredibly competitive, but we'll also pass the ball or whatever. Like, I know that sounds dorky and maybe don't say it in such corporate weird language like I just did. Like, I'll always pass the ball to my teammates. But I would maybe encourage us when we're coming up with the trivia is if there is like a parentheses or a thing we can just like ... and now tie it to what, how the recruiter can understand how this reflects in our work today. Maybe that's pushing it too much and it's not worth doing, but I'm throwing that out there just in case. I do want to wait for people to, throw more things in the chat, guys. Like, you don't have to overthink it. I mean, I do want you to really think about this after class, of course, but in the moment, like, give me examples right now that come to mind, and I can tell you if you're going in the right direction or tell me if like you're confused about this, the purpose of this, or how to frame it.
Are you talking about, are we still talking about the headline, or are we talking about another section?
Nope, we've moved on. The headline, so we are now the about section. So that was the headline part. Now we're in the about section. And in
Mm-hmm.
the about section, the way I like to structure it is we have an opening, you talk about the opportunities you want, a little bit of personal trivia, you're going to go into your expertise and have a closing. So five sections within the about section, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's just going to be a couple of it's not many sentences, and you're going to have spaces between the paragraphs. So here was the opening. Here's the opportunities you're looking for, and then maybe a sentence or two if you're a pivoter or have a nonlinear path. Then we got a little short personal trivia, and then we'll go into the expertise. And I'll show you guys some examples in a minute. I'm confused about the purpose of this. It feels like it's going to go on forever. Okay, so it seems I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. It's just three things so that when somebody's immediately looking at your profile, they get a sense of what you're all about and it's not so dry, is the point. Okay. So, yeah, I'll keep moving on. I won't stop. I thought it would be helpful if we did some work along each section or each point within the section. But if this is confusing, I'm just going to keep going and I'll show you some examples and we can always work on this later. Okay. So then after you have just a couple of things to know about me, so you get to include your personality, like, the MVP of the hockey team. But again, you're not just including random things. You're really reflecting on examples that show the person, that shows the hirer these things. You can do the work, you share their values, have a minimal learning curve, and you're a good long-term investment. Again, this is not random. Then I want you to say your expertise, and you're going to do this in bullet points. Whether or not you say the following are my expertise, you might just have it be categorized, the list of what you do at work with an example that brings it to life. So let me show you really quickly an example. Okay, quick question. Can you see this slide, or not slide, this Marnie's LinkedIn? Just want to make sure. No, you can't see it. Okay, so let me make sure. Let me stop my share real quick. So Poma can only see the slides. So yeah, wait, hold on. You can see Marnie's? Lamonic? All
I
right.
only see the slides as well. I don't
Okay.
see
Let me do.
anything on your desktop.
Okay. All right. Let's do this. Marnie. Okay, cool. So now we see Marnie. So here's a quick example. Remember before we got that banner. Okay. So we see what she does. Career coach and writer, job search, resume views. Cool. She could have added more things. All right. So for her, by the way, my suggestion for how to do an about, and it may be easier if I visually show you what I'm talking about. I have not seen it in the way I've explained it to you. I've seen elements of what I explained. So, but you can see, this is kind of her whole ethos, her professional background of what she does, her areas of expertise, right? Okay. But so this is her about. I'm actually going to, sorry, wrong person. Let's just see. Okay. Okay. My issue with this stuff is it's all quite long and I'm not necessarily going to read all of it and it's not broken up into bullet points. Okay. I like this a little bit better, right? I really like this, the emojis. Something he's written here is he's basically immediately upfront telling me, as the person reading this, am I the right customer for him? So what's the kind of company that you want to work for? Okay. This is what he does. All right. Clients he's worked with. So again, the reason I'm showing you all this is just how you can break it up visually. Jenny here, right? Leadership contributions, right? Empowering teams, champion DEIB, her expertise, right? This is not, I have edits for her on her LinkedIn, so this is not perfect, but you can again get a sense of that first part, the opening that I talked about, and then going more into like things to know about you and buckets of expertise. So let's say you do brand strategy, you might put brand strategy in bold, and then I want you to give me examples, specific examples of the times that you've done brand strategy, right? Then let's say another thing you do is, graphic design. Also, graphic design is a category. Underneath it, bullet points of examples. Okay. You're going to repeat that stuff later on in your work experience, but we need to incentivize somebody to keep scrolling to even get to your work experience. So just have it be really clear and well organized for me to understand the buckets of work that you do. Okay. With an example. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop this share. So that I can share my Zoom back. Okay. 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 Oops. So again, proudest career moments, couple of bullet points. Then my expertise, categories of what you do with an example. So it's not just I do brand strategy, the end. Okay. Because anybody can write that. This is where we got to move from like generic to compelling. And the compelling is in the story, it's in the example. Here's the challenge though. Can you tell the story? Can you give the example of your brand strategy work in 3 to 5 sentences? Do your best. I can help edit it down. We all need an editor for this stuff. Trust me. I wrote a book, was very long, needed an editor. Okay. So I got you, but do your best. Okay. To try to limit it to 3 to 5 sentences. Now, if you're in a hard time remembering all the things you've done, just go back. What are all the jobs you've worked? Okay. All the jobs you've worked. Also, maybe it's work you've done outside of a job too. So, decades of your life, maybe start there. Really think about what do you want to do moving forward. So the examples you're giving in your about section, don't highlight anything that you do not want to do. Okay. Moving forward. And of course, cross-reference it with the job post, the ideal job post. All right. All right, good. You selected your 3 categories of works that I do, right? The graphic design, the brand strategy, whatever. What is one example that you're really proud of that best illustrates that brand strategy work that you did? Okay. Let me know. You don't have to do it right now in this moment with us. Because I'm going to keep going because I want to get to the content section and you hearing from Hannah. Let me know if you're having trouble selecting your favorite example. But it's important you do this work because when it's the interview and or the cover letter part, you're not going to have time to just go on and on, right? You really have to be like, this is the shining example of that brand strategy work. It's probably going to be the one that had the most impressive impact, okay? And I have, y'all, I mean, you can ask me more if you're unsure of what impact is, but, the money saved or money made, which also can be translated into the time that you saved for the company. And then at the end, you're going to have a call to action. So who do you want to connect with and why, and how to get in touch? We can brainstorm ways to be a little bit stealthy about it if you don't want to straight up say you're looking for a job. But listen, we should all be looking to connect with people doing interesting things. So say you want to connect with people, decide what kind of people and what are they doing? Right? That's code. That's code. And that's fine. And then best mode of of contact for you, or if you have any other channels you want people to follow. So let's see. Okay, good. I'm just looking at the chat. So again, I know this is going to take you time on your own and you'll get all these steps moving forward and I will edit you. Let's talk about work experience. I mean, I'm happy to answer some questions here. It's if you want, it might have been, I realized it might have been more helpful for me in one slide to show you a sample of exactly what I mean. But again, going back, this is the about section we're talking about. I structure my about section in these 5 ways. Okay. And hopefully, I mean, this and the closing, repetition. And that's good, right? What opportunities you're looking for, you stated up front, but you also close with it. That's great. Okay. And remember, I will edit all of your stuff. Let's go on to work experience section. So it's just more details of what you do plus impact. Okay. And I'm going to be a broken record a little bit here. With the broken record part is of course the the impact of your work. But basically what to me in the work section, it's your job. And, everybody immediately goes into like what they've done. Before you do that though, however, why don't you just do a brief overview that sums everything up for me? And remembering, I, as the recruiter, I have no time to read any of this. And I'm not, and I'm tired. So just tell me straight up, what is the work that you did and the value you contributed? Maybe 5 sentences. Then you will go into more details of what your responsibilities are, but have a little sum up at the top. What does the sum up have in it? This brief overview part. Okay. I would suggest maybe starting with a quick description of the company if it's not a well-known company. By the way, that's so here are 2 examples, right? Just because otherwise, it's you're missing out on making yourself look impressive. If the company, has a lot of awesome things like this, how many people it serves and is it global, or, how much funding did it get, or was it sold, or how many employees, right? Once I edit it, maybe depending on where you've worked and the information you can put about it, maybe the context, we decide, I don't want to include it, but it'll help me as a recruiter get a sense that you have worked at a similar company to the one that I am hiring for. And then just again, state what your main role was. So the core function. So even though you may have done a lot of things, as we've covered before, just generally, what were you responsible for to achieve what goal? And if you can get to so that, that larger impact of your work part, as I'm obsessed with. Then if there's anything else that you did beyond your main role, for example, and I've heard this from a number of you, I think as a POMA who improved HR policies, that was not in her job description, right? Or if you participated in the employee resource group, or, anything that really expanded well beyond your main role, you should also state that I was also responsible for, right? And this is last one. You don't have to include it, but if you have a bit of a testimonial, if there was, a nice email you got from somebody, or people thought of you as certain kind of person at the team, my manager used to call me the Energizer Bunny or something. And then I'm proud to have, and if you have any kind of quantified impact you could give for your time there, close your your overview with that sentence. That's a kicker. Do you have to include that last sentence? No. But if I can push you to do it, great. Point being, though, when I look at that last job that you had, I'm not going to be interested in going through all the bullet points unless you make me interested in going through all the bullet points. So effectively, sum it up and make yourself look good, which I will help you do as well. That is the brief overview. This is under each job. Next thing you do, then list out the main responsibilities that you had. Oh, I have a little spelling error with an example that brings it to life. So it's the same thing that you just did. Remember earlier here of expertise, but this part was in the about section. Now we're in the work experience section. Can you repeat yourself? Absolutely. Go for it. Again, it'll bump you in the algorithm, but give me more examples. That's just the point of the work experiences. It's just a fleshed out section of the about. The about is like a summary of your work experience. Okay. Rewrite it with an action verb, though. That's the thing. That's something I notice. Is a number of people, it's like they start describing what they're doing. Don't use ing if you can avoid it. So just the verb, the work that you did, quantified impact. Quantified impact, please. Okay. Not just the list of responsibilities, because that can be generic. We've got to see examples. Okay. Now, moving on. This is just a reminder of numbers, right? Again, quantified impact. Okay. Before I move on to the last elements of the profile that I think are important, let me just take a look at the chat. Question: LinkedIn breaks up my work experience by each job title promotion. What if they're similar to each other? Project manager with increasing levels. Do I continue repeating a lot of this? I think you're going to have to give an example of, so is your question about the responsibilities, right? So your responsibilities under each job title were all the same or really similar, I think is what you're asking. Yes. Okay. I think it's fine to repeat it. But again, I want to see an example. And so that's the great thing about in the overview, this little overview part, when you introduce the job, is you can say with increasing levels of complexity, risk, scope of projects, right? But chances are you did different things. I mean, maybe you did quote the same thing, but under each job that title you had, do you have different examples at least? So we can see that. Yeah, my examples get bigger under each one. Yeah. So that would be, yeah. And then those are going to be the numbers. So don't shortchange yourself here, right? Like if you need to repeat yourself so that you can then get to the story with the really impressive impact, great, repeat it. And again, because I'm not spending much time, and when I say I mean the recruiter is not spending much time on your profile. When they actually see the repetition of words, it solidifies to them that you can do this. And anybody who works in like brand marketing knows this. It's actually the consistency of the message that gets the message across. But again, I want to see those examples. So I think the biggest challenge may be honestly whittling it down, finding the numbers, and having a short sentence. But start that sentence with an action verb. Let me just keep going through here. So we've got skills. So the other parts that I want you to do for your profile, besides the banner, headline, about, and there was a question on location, by the way. I would put, first of all, metropolitan area. So I would not, for example, say West Hollywood. Okay. I would say Los Angeles metropolitan area so that you're casting a wider net when people are looking for you. I would also, put your target city. Honestly, I think there's not one right way to do that. If you ask different recruiters how they feel about this, I know, Lee, you're in Boston and you want to work in California. I don't know if there's a specific area of California you want to work. If you say Los Angeles metropolitan area, you're now going to get into the feed of people who are looking to recruit folks in Los Angeles. You'd have to be ready to move, though, of course, because you can't, lie. You'd have to be, you're ready to move. You also, I know, are applying to jobs in Boston. So when they see that you're in Los Angeles, might that hurt you? I don't know. So for you, you may want to stick to Boston, and then in your about section, that would be, in that part of the opportunities that you're looking for. I have a dream of moving to California. If you're hiring in California, doesn't matter where, I want the sunshine. Message me. Here's my email, right? So I'm not sure what Ellen's question here. So how do you get past the LinkedIn breakup? Not sure what that means. So if you want to just write out more of what you're asking, that would be great. The last sections here. Okay, let me answer Layla. If you did the same job with similar metrics, give or take, at different companies in different industries, is it better to contextualize the description for the industry? Yeah, maybe, right? I'd have to see it again when I'm looking at your specific link profile. I can give you specific edits. Contextual description of the industry. So you're talking about in that little brief overview for that job that you had? Yeah. So versus the company. You probably want to contextualize you want to talk about the company, right? Because I'm looking at your work experience. It says, let's say Verizon. You wouldn't need to describe Verizon. We already know that company. So this would just be for any of like a company you feel like is not well known. And by describing that company, is it going to help me? So this is actually a question for you, Lily. Feel free to just think about it on your own. And also this is for everybody. Only describe the company if you feel like the context of the company makes you look good. And something that would make you look good is I could actually be working with not many people, right? So like I was the second employee at a company, or it was a 5-person startup and we raised $1 million, right? So that might be where some context would make me look really good. Good. Okay. Thanks for responding, Mama. Yeah. So, and also Layla, if describing the company would help a future employer better understand what you're capable of in terms of the environment that you can work in. If you don't feel like it would be helpful, then don't include it. But because I'm not asking you all to like write this and publish it, I'm just asking you to write it and share it with me. Go for it, try it, and then I can tell you if I feel like this would make you look good. Hopefully that answers your question. Last sections here, skills, recommendations, and interests. I think these are the only other really important ones. Does that mean you don't include your education or volunteering, certificates, awards? Of course you do, but for our purposes today, there's only so much I don't want to overload you. So for your skills, really just cross-reference it with those job posts, okay? Interests, really interesting. Follow the companies that you want to notice you. I would do that after you have updated your profile though, of course, right? And then I have hyperlinks here in this slides that you'll get after along with the recording. And it has two lists. One list I've sent to you already, I believe, and a new one I haven't yet sent you. One was like Forbes top 100 companies to work for. And then the other list, I think, might be LinkedIn's top companies for career growth. So take a look at those companies. If any of them seem interesting to you, even if they don't have open job descriptions, doesn't matter. Go follow those companies. Go see who's working in HR, who are the hiring managers. Go follow them. Okay. But wait to do that until after you've updated your profile. I believe in one of my emails, I did say, Ellen's asking if I've sent those. I believe I did send a list, that Forbes 100 top companies list, in an email with where I was, I think, asking you to bring a job post for today. But I will send these all again. Don't worry. And then the recommendations, right? And we can obviously discuss this more in the networking module, but reflect on what strengths that you want to highlight first. So before you start reaching out to people to ask them to write a recommendation for you on LinkedIn, really do think about, your signature strengths. Maybe you've got 3 to 5 of them. Who have you worked with before that can speak to those strengths? Maybe they can't speak to all of them, but that's fine. Make that list of the people. When you reach out to them, give them a suggested deadline. Okay. So would you be able to do this in the next week or week and a half? Okay. And then be very clear and specific to them about what you would like them to put in the recommendation. The reason they're going to say no is because they don't have time. So how do you make this as just quick and easy as possible for them? I am, one of the strengths I'm trying to highlight about myself is X. I believe that you could speak really, well to that, especially remember when that project we worked on, right? So like already teeing them up to describe the project that you worked on and how it reflects that talent, right? Or that skill. And then of course, offer to reciprocate to them, can I write a recommendation for you? But also have ready to go an example, okay? Because I may have mentioned this in a previous module, but book blurbs, there very few people actually, Alexa Von Tobel, I don't think she wrote this blurb. I'm sure I wrote the blurb and asked her to put her name on it. So don't do that up front, right? Like give them a chance to write the recommendation with, according to the guidance you've given them, but ask them, would it be easier if I just wrote the recommendation and then you edited it? Right. And they may say, oh my gosh, thank you. Because to be honest, that's what I would do. If you all ask me for a recommendation, I'm going to say, could you please maybe write it or an outline of it? Okay, so we've gone over, to me, the important elements of the profile. And again, in the video recording, audio recording, you're going to get the list of those elements with your next steps. So if this felt a little overwhelming, hopefully not, but it's your entire work history and who you are and what you want to do. So yeah, it is a lot. Just a question of how do we package it? How do we position it? And how do I edit it? Again, next 7 days, please share with me. Let's talk about content because I know we only have about 38 minutes left and my fireside with Hannah is 30 minutes. Okay. But I want to just appeal to you all, even if you are not a quote content creator, so to speak, you do need to create content. You do. And actually you're going to want to create content because it is going to be your way of actually helping other people. I will give you many, many, many ideas for content, and all you need to do is pick one of them. I would encourage you to pick more than one so that you have a variety of content, but just pick one. It's one idea that you really love because it's going to be easy for you to do and it's going to help somebody else. By the way, only 1% of people even post on LinkedIn. So this is going to give you a big advantage with the algorithm. The goal with LinkedIn here is staying visible and staying connected. Posting content does both of those things. When I open up my LinkedIn, you are going to be at the top of my feed every time if you post content. And you're going to connect with all of these amazing recruiters. Whether or not there are open job postings, we don't care. It's about knowing who the recruiter is, and wherever they go in their career, you're connected on LinkedIn and consistently posting content, great. They're going to remember you or reach out to you for another role. You never know. So this is you just putting money in the bank for that rainy day, right? So, but I hopefully we can do it in a way that's not like pulling teeth for you. I have a question. I've never done this before. I've never played a video in a presentation. So I'm going to start playing the video. You tell me if you can hear it and see it. And Hannah, by the way, Hannah Gensch, so she's a content creator. She's got millions of followers across channels. But most interesting to me is the fact that she ran marketing at at hired.com, at a hiring company. And so she really saw good good practices and was compelled herself to create an income, a side income through content, and just is such an evangelist for everybody making content, regardless of if it turns into a secondary income and now a primary income. And for her, it doesn't matter. It's the point that you now are a thought leader. Like people will know who you are because you have put yourself out there. So hopefully she can convince you. If not me, I'm going to press play. Do jump in the yeah, and Lee says I have the most uncomfortable time when I try to self-promote on LinkedIn. That's why I don't think we should be self-promoting in our posts. It's about providing value to other people. So that when they're in the feed, they're like, thank you so much for this post. Your self-promotion is only in that you did it. Okay. Your name is out there, your face is out there, and it's out there consistently. So you now subconsciously / consciously will be remembered. But the posts that you make are not necessarily about even your work. It could be, I read this article and I thought it was helpful. Okay. So we're going to get to those ideas. Can you hear Hannah, this? You're the best. Thank you so much for being here. I know all of our guests, guests, our participants and ladies get hired, appreciate guests that come on and are real with their journey, what they've experienced. And for today, our module is how to optimize LinkedIn to attract opportunities. You go well beyond LinkedIn to other social channels. Before we get into your journey as a content creator, although for everybody watching, it's not that we're suggesting that you all become content machines, so to speak, in terms of making revenue from your content, but it is absolutely the safety net that we all need to weave, irrespective of the jobs that we have, because it allows us to stay visible to our network. And then we'll find opportunities through, other relationships that we build. But you used to work at Hired. So I want to pick your brain for a quick second there in terms of, you may not be quite ready to speak to this, but any trends or insights that you might be able to share just in general for job seekers these days, things that you found important, whether it's through the content lens or otherwise. You just have this really, valuable perspective having been on hiring platform, and for everybody you're watching, we're eager to learn from you. So maybe if you could start there, then we'll go into content and your journey specifically.
Yeah, definitely. And I have seen this both with Hired trends and also just a lot of the sentiment that I hear from people like through the avenue of my content creation. I talk a lot about career advice and career advancement in the job search. So I get a lot of people in the comments kind of sharing their experience. And I think one of the things that I don't want to call it a change because I think it's always been present, but is more important now than ever is having a multi-pronged job search approach. Like just relying on mass applications isn't cutting it like it once was when every job is getting hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And I think this is where content creation and personal branding really fits into the conversation. But, opportunities come about in so many ways, and it can be very tunnel vision to just rely on job applications to get there. So, treat networking throughout the entirety of your career rather than just when you're looking for a job, like intentionally personal branding to create that visibility, showing up at events, getting involved in your industry and your niche is more important now than ever because the goal is to minimize the time and the effort required in order to land that next role, or even if you're not looking for a new role, just to keep income flowing. So I think the wider of a lens people can take at the job search and finding their next role, the easier it'll all be and the less effort that's actually going to be required.
Yeah, it's kind of like the consistent, it's like working out, not that I'm.
It is, it totally is.
Right, where it's like, if you could just do a little bit of like 5-pound weightlifting every day,
Yeah.
better than waiting until you're like, oh crap, I just woke up and I need to, I have gestational diabetes.
Totally. Yeah,
So-
yeah, you wouldn't run a marathon without having like trained for months and months beforehand, so.
Yeah,
I compare it to working out a lot. I think that's the right analogy.
yeah, which is something a lot of people dread too. So actually, definitely think it's
Yeah.
it's an analogy. I actually like to talk about maybe mindset, how we can get excited about consistent content creation. And then we'll get into the specifics of figuring out what content to post, wrapping our heads around quote personal brand. But how do you get people, or at least yourself, like jazzed to want to do this?
Yeah. Mindset is like, I think the most important topic, number one, because it's something I hear from everybody at something, it's something every single person experiences when they're starting any sort of content creation, personal branding, even job searching journey. A lot of people face the cringe in putting themselves online. A lot of people have like internal fears of being seen. A lot of people that are millennials or like older generations have kind of gone through this transition of not having this very public social media to having it and kind of needing to play the game surrounding it. So that's kind of a weird experience to go through. I think, now that I'm kind of on the other end, I want to say, like, I've seen a lot of the opportunity that can come from it. And now I can look back and be like, damn, that's the best thing I've done for myself in my career. But I think when you are at the beginning, it can seem really daunting. There's this like big hill to climb. What I try to encourage people is like, look at it. I mean, first of all, it starts with understanding your goal in all of this. But if you look at anybody that has achieved that goal, that thing, like your ideal state that you'd want to end up in, chances are that they have overcome that fear of being seen and they've been committed to putting themselves out there. And so, we are all going to think about ourselves and other people's perception of ourselves a lot more than other people are going to think about us.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that can come on the other side of just slow, constant acts of being seen are so greatly outweigh the external judgment that may and probably won't come with it. So I think a lot of this is overcoming like the internal fear of that perception and being seen, and understanding that people don't think about us as much as we think about ourselves. People talk about like climbing the cringe mountain. There's good content out there about this. I definitely encourage everybody to look into it, but it's like, if in a year from now, you're in the exact same position that you are in today because you haven't made progress on any of these things, like, how are you going to feel at that point? And if it's the difference between just writing one LinkedIn post today and taking. Oops.
We're talking about ways that you can begin, lots of great ideas.
Sorry
with
about
this quote, personal.
In that people don't think about us as much as we think
Oh.
about ourselves. People talk about like climbing the cringe mountain. There's good content out there about this. I definitely encourage everybody to look into it, but it's like, if in a year from now, you're in the exact same position that you are in today because you haven't made progress on any of these things, like, how are you going to feel at that point? And if it's the difference between just writing one LinkedIn post today and taking one little step forward each day, like, yourself a year from now is going to thank you so drastically for that.
Oh, awesome, Hannah, you're the best.
What the heck? Sorry. Oh my goodness. Oh. Well, I just learned a lesson.
Sorry about that. I just learned a lesson that I can't click and minimize. Apologies.
Awesome.
Oh no. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry. I've never done this before. Okay. So we are in here.
Awesome, Hannah. You're
Okay.
the best. Thank you.
All right. Question is, how do I back up in the video without? Here we go.
Yes.
A cringe mountain. I love Perfect. it. Well, I hate it, but that's funny that there's an expression for it.
Now, if I
press so I guess let's just start.
Ah,
Awesome, Hannah. You're the best. Thank you so
huh. Ah, here we go.
Anybody that's looking for a job, you know, I think the stat is like 1% of LinkedIn
Okay, pause.
can then start to brainstorm content ideas
Okay, sorry. Ugh.
with that goal in mind. For me, it was income. Yeah, and I think the way I started is not necessarily the way
Thanks
much
for your
content
patience.
on our own journey. And no matter where we
Okay.
because you haven't made progress on
Thank
any
you.
of these
Sorry about that.
things, like how are you going to feel at that point? And if it's the difference between just writing one LinkedIn post today and taking one little step forward each day, like yourself a year from now is going to thank you so drastically for that.
yes, a cringe mountain. I love it. Well, I hate it, but that's funny that there's an expression for it.
Mhm.
So I guess let's just start a little bit at the beginning. You're
Yeah.
somebody who, well, not you, because you are actually a real content creator, but somebody who does not think of themselves as a content creator at all. They just want a freaking job. They want a full-time job. They want to go to the job, come home, get paid, be done with it. And then they're hearing, oh my gosh, I need to create this quote, personal brand. I hate that I have to effectively commoditize myself. Well, this is the world that we live in, guys. I hate to say it. At the same time, I also think it's a good thing, because if you think of yourself as a quote commodity or a product, that also means you're a business. And I
Yeah.
think like business people, that means we work for ourselves, even when we're getting a paycheck for somebody else. It's an investment in us. Okay.
Mhm.
And we have to now think of ourselves outside of that job. We are our own person creating content on our own journey. And no matter where we go, we always have our content. We own our intellectual property. So I do think there is a positive way to spin it. But I want everybody just to accept the fact that content creation is here to stay, and it can be leveraged as an absolute positive thing, as Hannah has done. But for somebody who's resisting it, maybe now we've convinced you, fine, I'm a product, I'll do it, okay? In this module, we are talking about ways that you can begin, lots of great ideas for finding content that resonates with yourself and putting it out there. For you, whether it's your own journey you want to talk or people you've seen online, worked with, etc. Where did you begin when you started to post? Could have been technically for your job, of course. When did you decide for yourself, I'm gonna do this for me? Hannah, the personal brand, the commodity, and you know, how did you begin? And then how did you do it sustainably? Where did you find the time and energy to do it? Because you had a full-time job up until recently.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I think the way I started is not necessarily the way I'd suggest folks to start. But I, you know, I think the way I started was at the end of what year is it? 2022, circa November. I had a friend who had been sharing content on TikTok, getting traction, working with brands. I was inspired by the goal of generating a secondary income outside of my corporate job. I wasn't immediately job searching. It was less of a, you know, I need to do something else, so therefore I need to build that visibility, and more of like, how can I complement my full-time role with something that I have full autonomy over? And so I literally started by pulling up a Google Doc and dumping in a bunch of topics that I knew something about and cared enough about to talk about. For me, that's been careers and the job search, and that was very closely aligned with my role at Hired. But you know, what I would suggest for folks that are thinking about this, and I love the analogy to a business, because I think that's exactly the right way to think about it, is, you know, start with that goal in mind. For me, it was income. For other people, it might be gaining leverage in the hiring process. It might be pivoting careers. It might be positioning yourself as a thought leader to just advance broadly, you know, participate in speaking opportunities. It could be becoming an online persona and building more visibility. For a lot of people in this session, it's most likely landing that next job and having more of that control in your career. And then based on that goal, you're going to have a target audience. You're going to have people that you're trying to talk to. If you're looking for a job, it may be the hiring managers. It's probably those decision makers that would see you and decide that you've got the background they want to interview, or you've done something successful enough that they want to bring you into their company. What the approach that I took back in November 2022 when I started was that kind of brain dump into Google Doc was my first attempt at building out content pillars. Content pillars, the idea is that these are standalone topics that drive the narrative of the content that you're creating. So I literally went in and just pulled in standalone topics about careers, job searching, interview, salary negotiation, self-advocating, but that could be anything related to your professional career. So let's say you're in marketing and you're, performance marketing. Maybe your main content pillar could be like case studies about ad types that perform really well. I would suggest choosing a primary, like a cornerstone pillar. That's kind of the thing you want to be associated with. And then a series of 3 to 4 sub pillars that are related to that cornerstone pillar, can be a chance for you to showcase more of your expertise and maybe dabble into things you're interested in or particularly passionate about. And then I think what makes really good content stand out is when we as the audience, as the viewer, can tie it back to a person. It's not just like this regurgitated information. So get a pillar in there that's about, something that's unique to you. Maybe it's something in your lifestyle. Maybe it's like your personal stories from your career. So hopefully through this exercise, you're coming out with a list of 5 to 6, however many make sense, like standalone topics that you can then start to brainstorm content ideas about. I think another great approach when getting started is to think through like your unique points of view. So there's a woman named Wes Cow. She's the co-founder of Maven, and she has talked a lot about spiky points of view. And, these are the hills that you would die on, like whether or not everyone's going to agree with you, chances are they probably won't. Like these are the points of view that you can back up with either your experience, with research. And these are, rather than just sharing information point blank, like these are the points of view on the information that you're taking. And again, these are things that are going to help you build that visibility because they're unique to you and not just, information that can be searched. And then another kind of framing that I think can help at the beginning is thinking about your personal monopoly, which is this combination of the skills that you have, your expertise. And if any of you are getting paid for your work, like you have expertise. So definitely, I think a lot of people discredit what they know, but anybody that's employed, and even if you're not employed, like you know something about something, or are putting an effort to learn something to go get the job that you're going after. So your personal monopoly is this combination of your skills, the things that you are uniquely passionate about or curious about, or the things that just like pique your interest, and then your personality layered on top of that. And I think what can quickly set content creators or people creating content apart is including personality in what you're talking about, sharing personal stories and kind of separating from just like the LinkedIn feed that is AI written and, starts to sound quite similar. So, hopefully through this exercise, you've got content pillars, you've got topics you want to talk about, you've got your unique perspective on those topics, and then you've thought through like, what are the elements of your personality and your pieces of interest that you can layer in there. Then we talk about channels. So LinkedIn is probably going to be included for anybody that's looking for a job. I think the stat is like 1% of LinkedIn's 1 billion users are actively creating content. So there's a lot of room out there for other people. I'm a big proponent of short form video content. I think it's such an amazing way to get recognized. The TikTok algorithm is very favorable. Even if you have no following whatsoever, YouTube is harder to build on, but like the content just goes so much deeper than written content. So if you are interested in or have an appetite for short form content, or video content, I would most definitely recommend experimentation there. But channels could also be Instagram, it could be writing a blog, it could be, capturing emails somehow and sending a newsletter. It could just be like really solid engagement with other people in your niche on LinkedIn. It could be, getting into the speaker circuit in your industry and getting featured as a guest on podcasts or events. A lot of those things too can kind of come after you've built some recognition. And then LinkedIn really favors personal stories. So an exercise that I've done before is to go through and kind of write out a timeline of your life. What are kind of the big things that have happened? You can fit this onto one page and then start to think through like stories of experiences that you've gone through that you can tie into those content pillars. I think that is one of the good things that can help differentiate your content from just kind of regurgitating pieces of information.
That's a great that's a great exercise. Thank you.
Yeah, it's something I have it on my list to do again soon. I think it's the kind of thing that like you update it every so often, and you'd be surprised with what you come up with. But just to have that library of like, these are strong stories that I can draw back to support a specific topic I want to talk about, because there's a lot of like psychological science about how stories are so much more memorable and impactful than just sharing facts. So definitely would encourage folks to play around with that. When it comes to actually creating content, I think it's well worth everyone's while to go find other creators that they admire. There's so many different ways to create content. There's so many different styles. There's so many different things to talk about. So finding people that you admire and trying to get in the marketer's mindset of analyzing their content to understand what is working and what is not. So that's things like topics, the formats that they're using, who they're trying to talk to, the way that they're positioning themselves, what are any other characteristics of their content that jump out to you? And then that can be information that informs the way that you approach. So, some creator might do case study style blog posts or LinkedIn posts where they're analyzing something in their industry and giving their commentary on it. Or somebody else may be very personal stories focused and sharing a personal story from that exercise and then talking about the learning from that. Or other people maybe doing like little experiments on their own all the time and then kind of sharing their learnings from those. So there's so much room for creativity. Figure out what kind of resonates with you and what you're the most interested in doing, and then play around with it and just start posting. And then kind of the last step that I think about in this prep work is just brainstorming. Like take those content pillars. I remember back when I pulled up that Google Doc and started dumping in the topics under each pillar, I just brain dumped every single like post topic concept I could think of. So, how to respond when somebody asks your salary expectations was one of the first videos that I made on TikTok. How to talk about a resume gap in an interview, or just kind of examples of like standalone concepts that I could then go write a post about. I think a lot of people get tripped up in ideation, or that can often seem daunting. How do I come up with things to talk about? I don't have anything interesting to say. And there's so many different angles to come at this from. There's just like your existing knowledge base. Like, again, you definitely know more than you're giving yourself credit for. I try and keep a habit of just like writing regularly, journaling, reflecting on my own experiences. There's consuming other content, getting inspiration from blogs, articles, podcasts, YouTubers, other content creators, and hearing what topics are of interest to other people, and then going back to like my points of view. What's my perspective on this topic, and how can I add to this conversation? And then with that target audience in mind, like brainstorm a list of questions that they would be asking and try and come up with answers, and then use those as post topics. So when we think about looking for a job, we're most likely trying to appeal to the people that would hire us. Like, consider what are their biggest challenges that they're running into? What pieces of information or expertise is most important to them to know that the people they're hiring are going to have, and then how can you create content that is going to showcase that you know you have all of this information. So that's a very long-winded way, a lot of these things were not things that I did on step one. My step one was literally just creating that Google Doc and dumping in a bunch of ideas and just starting. But if I were to go back, I think there are kind of strategic approaches to take at the beginning that can then make the act of
A little bit at
creating
the
content
beginning.
easier.
You're
Yeah, awesome.
somebody
This is
who, well, not you,
gold.
because
So
you're
gold.
actually
Oh
a
my God,
real
thank you,
content creator, but somebody who
Weird.
does not think of themselves as a content creator at all. They
Ooh.
just want a freaking job. They
Oh,
want a
no.
full-time job. They want to go to the job, come home, get
That was weird. I don't know why.
paid, be done with it.
Huh, that was very odd.
Doc and dumping in a bunch of ideas and just starting. But if I were to go back, I think there are kind of strategic approaches, build the routine, because once the routine is built, it becomes dark.
And especially if you have a full-time job, which you did when you started. So how did you figure out where to focus your energy?
Yes, totally. So at the beginning, the biggest thing that I was focused on was just getting content out there. I think it's so easy to see lots of opportunities, there's so many channels to even post on. There's the engagement, there's, the networking. Like my focus at the very beginning was just start posting content and build the routine, because once the routine is built, it becomes easier to add things on top of that. Especially with short form content, or really any short form video content or any type of content creation, I think it's easy to look at it and be like, does that mean I have to be writing a post every single day or creating a new video every single day? And the approach that I took with it that has served me well, and I'm still doing over a year later, is batching my tasks. So I'll sit down and try and come up with 3 or 4 post ideas in one sitting. And maybe I'm doing this an evening after work, or, blocking off an hour every morning to just write. And then for me, because I'm doing video, I also have to film and edit. So that's kind of different batches of tasks. But I think for folks just starting on LinkedIn, like trying to give yourself the space at the beginning to develop that regular recurring writing habit. Because once you, like I've certainly found that the more I've done it, the more I'm pushing myself to just write regularly and frame ideas and information as stories, the easier that comes over time. So, if you were to forget everything else except for one piece of advice, it's like, just start by giving yourself 30 days to practice writing every day and posting something online. I'm a big fan of kind of a way I do a lot of things in life is just committing to the bare minimum, or people talk about the MVP, minimum viable product, like just getting something out there is better than doing nothing at all. And so if that means you're going to write a 2-line LinkedIn post and just publish it today, because that is all that you can come up with, like that is better than nothing. And then there's this concept about trying to just be 1% better every time, rather than getting overwhelmed with all of the best practices up front. Like just start somewhere, and then every time you write or make a post, focus on 1% improvement from the last one that you did.
Love it. That's awesome. Totally agreed. And that's something I need to get better at too, and just putting things out there and not waiting until it's all perfect.
It's hard.
Yeah, quick. Okay, just like kind of wrap up questions. Vulnerability. So I've had folks say to me, I really appreciate your stories, Claire. And I mean, it's gotten me clients, honestly, like sharing mean girl stories from high school, etc. But they also feel for themselves, though, yikes, I don't want to be that person who has this sob story about losing their job, or how, they're not sure how transparent to be about their job search journey, or, where does vulnerability play a role in how you express yourself online? Because I think it's necessary, but I also understand what that response is from folks. No, they want to protect themselves too.
Yeah.
So where does, I don't know, how do you feel about that in general? Vulnerability?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I feel like I've benefited a lot from vulnerability. I think it's one of the things that has gotten me traction so far.
Me too.
I think there's a balance too between using content as like your journal compared to sharing stories that illustrate a point. And I think that's where like having the marketing foundations to fall back on, which are the things like the content pillars, knowing your target audience, you know, having the systems and routines surrounding content creation, and then using personal stories and vulnerability to support the point that you're making can give your content personality and draw people to you because it gives them a more emotional way to connect to you without like everything you're putting out there just feeling like people are reading your diary, because that's not like I'm going back to the goal here. Like we're doing this with a goal in mind. This isn't just like reveal everything about your personal experience and it's going to get you a job. Like that's not how it works. And one of the things to remember in this too is like we are creating a digital footprint here, and we're I have so many thoughts about this clearly, and I go back to like the comparison of us as individuals to a business. Like businesses all use marketing strategies to sell their products to the right people. And what we're doing here is we're using marketing strategies to create this ideal image of ourselves so that we can sell ourselves and our services to our target audience. And emotional connection and vulnerability is an amazing way to do that, because often that's like a psychological component of making a sale. Like if somebody can relate to you emotionally, that connection is just going to be stronger. But really this is a marketing problem, or not a problem, it's a marketing approach. And you know, it needs to be balanced with the kind of strategic thinking about like, why am I saying this? What is the point that I'm making here? What is the information I'm getting across, and who am I talking to and appealing to in all of this?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think if you're using it, well, of course you're using it to gain awareness for yourself, but the post in of itself should ideally help somebody else. That's how
Mhm,
I approach
exactly.
everything is this bringing value to the other person?
Yeah,
And if you have some kind of lesson takeaway from it, that's great. You're tying it up in a bow. It's not just like a
yeah,
dear diary, as you said.
exactly.
Any tools that you use? And you did mention AI, like not sounding like AI, but sort of, you know, the role of ChatGPT potentially in helping generate either ideas or the beginnings of posts that you then personalize. So to get into the logistics of it, I'd love you to share any tips and tricks you might have in regards to some tools.
Yeah, definitely. So I have been using Notion. I don't want to say I have the perfect setup because I've you know, tweaked it a few times over the years. I actually just bought the Creator HQ operating system from Jay Klaus.
Love Jay Klaus.
Very hefty. It's for multi-channel creators, probably not something you need as a beginner, certainly, but like Notion has content calendar templates in there that can be a good starting point. ChatGPT, it's so funny because I feel like I'm starting to be able to pick out AI written content on my LinkedIn feed, because there's some kind of tendencies AI has and just recurring writing styles. I think AI can be a great brainstorm partner, but I don't think it's like direct output should be the thing that is relied on. I think it takes really sophisticated prompts to get output that like actually sounds human and sounds like your unique self. But you know, if you know you want to talk about like, I don't even know, performance marketing, to go back to that example, and creative ad formats, use ChatGPT to brainstorm unique angles on maybe there was a recent news article that came out in your industry and you want to help it come up with different perspectives you could talk about to commentate on whatever that news article was. And then from there, you know, it gives you ideas and then you come up with the post. Or maybe it's, you know, building that knowledge about your target audience. Maybe you're interviewing for a role in engineering and you want to deeply understand what the engineering manager cares about when making those hires. Like rely on ChatGPT to generate questions that target audience or target buyer would have, so then you can create content that helps to answer some of those questions. So there are lots of ways to get really sophisticated with prompt engineering, and I do think it's like a worthwhile skill to learn as AI becomes just more and more prevalent, and it will, like, we talk about doing this sustainably, and AI can be a great way to do that, but I still see a lot of people that are just having AI write a post, and maybe they're making a couple tweaks and they're just posting that outright, and
You can
we're
tell.
you can tell, and we're losing the personality in it. And I think the person, especially as more people create content, more of it's written by AI, the personality is going to be the thing that helps with visibility and sets people apart.
Yeah, awesome. What have you not shared that you think would be helpful for people to know? And then off of that, also curious, you know, if your goal is just generally exposure, right? Like expanding your network, solidifying yourself as a thought leader, and then seeing what opportunities may come. So you're not necessarily a person who wants to create a side income or looking for speaker gigs, et cetera. Like, how do you know if this is working or not working? And then just, yeah, general last thoughts that you have to share. You've been so helpful.
Yeah, totally. Biggest thought is just like, it's such a worthwhile endeavor. It gives you so much control especially in a hiring market where job seekers do not have a lot of control. Like, really the goal of all of this is building leverage, and leverage can be used in so many different ways. As far as knowing what's working and what's not, luckily, a lot of these channels that we're posting on have metrics tied to them, and you can look at analytics and you can see outright what's working and what's not working. So, when I remember when I went into content creation, like I went in with the mindset of approaching it like a job. I'm not the best at it. I one of my goals is to get better at my like monthly look back to see what content worked and what didn't work, and what structures of post did people respond really well to, what kind of comments were people sharing, so that I can tweak my content going forward. But I think there's so much information that can come from the way people respond and what people respond to, that it can also help inform some of those things, like your content topic or your content pillars and your, personal monopoly, like what is eliciting excitement out of the people you're talking to.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
Amazing. Of course. I love this topic. I'm like so happy to chat about it. It's been one of the best things I've done for myself in my career. Like, I could not have expected all the traction and the opportunity to come from it. And I think, work on the mindset, work on getting over the cringe. That's step one. And step two is just start writing, and really the rest just follows. It's incredible how it just comes, but like, it's opened so many doors. I've met so many amazing people because of it. And I feel that leverage now. And I wish that for everybody, would encourage it for everybody. It's very worthwhile.
You're the best. And yeah, now she's quit her job and she's doing this full time and moving to Southeast Asia for the next, foreseeable future, making a living doing this. So again, not saying that you all should do that, but the fact that she had a full-time job, was doing this on the side, and now is able to make an actual career out of it. I mean, really, she's doing it constantly. All you got to do it is just once a week. So let me pop to, so just one short post a week. Really encourage you to combine it with something you're already doing. Let me do a present. I'm going to also show you an example of what a good structure of a post looks like in just a second. And then I'm going to give you a ton of ideas for content for yourself. And then a next step, and we're good. I appreciate you all for sticking around. So quick example of how to combine it with something you're already doing. If you are not yet following me on Instagram, highly encourage you to do that. So go to Claire Gets Paid. I also started to post it on my LinkedIn. I go for a walk every day, usually with one of my kids and around on me. And I'm turning it into a series that I'm now calling #Wisdom Walks. And I just share a thought that I have. And I have to go for that walk anyway. It's good for my mental and physical health. I should be posting on social media more. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go for I don't want to exercise and I don't want to do social media. So I decided to combine both of them basically. And on that walk, I already am going into it thinking about, yeah, I got a couple of topics that have, that are interesting to me, about, adversity or parenting or whatever it is. And I just challenged myself by the end of this walk, and the walk is about 30 to 45 minutes, I have to have recorded this video and uploaded it to Instagram. And then I get home and I upload it to a program called Descript, which I think it's free. I know there's a paid version, but free. And guess what? It has the transcript in it. And I just turn the transcript into a LinkedIn post that I post alongside my video. Done. So now every day I have a LinkedIn post and I have an Instagram, and I also am exercising. So I'd actually love you. Yeah, why don't I want to do social? It's a longer story. I think I have a psychological aversion to the idea of something that I will have to keep feeding. It's a beast, right? If you don't keep feeding the beast, it's not going to work anymore. And so I'm like scared if I start posting on all social channels, like I'd love to have a YouTube show, like all these ideas of things that I know I would love doing because I love creating content. It's the never ending part of it that freaks me out. The getting sucked into, you know, all right, it's working, the and I start obsessively checking my analytics. And then, oh my gosh, I'm going to, the analytics drop. You got to keep feeding the beast. And it's a treadmill that I can never get off of. But then I realize how many people I'm not helping by keeping myself small. That's the same thing I really want you all to think about, is how limited you are making both yourself, but also all those employers out there, all those people out there, they are looking for you. And if you're not raising your hand, they will never find you. What a shame. What a shame. So that's the mindset part. But mindset isn't everything. I think it's about habits plus mindset. And that's where I had to really look at, what am I already doing, which was the walk. I got that down. Let's do the video. Okay. Also, preparing ahead by batch writing and posting. If every day, you're like, I got to do this thing, you might not do it. But hey, listen, if every Monday is the day where you're preparing ahead, you might be more likely to do it. Okay, so ways to just increase engagement. I'm going to show you an example of somebody's post that I think is really good. Two posts I think are quite good, but it's got to be paragraph spacing, short sentences. The same thing with your profile, right? The about section. Having these long sentences, long paragraphs, no. It's all got to be really easy, digestible stuff. So bullet points are good. Emojis are good. If you want to, this is AP level here. Just regular 101 is just post your thing once a week and be done with it. But AP level is interacting with somebody else's content right before you post yours and right after. So it's going to juice the algorithm. It's going to get you into more feeds. And a way to remember to interact with people is that recommendation I had for you before, which was follow somebody and then click on that icon bell, so that you're notified. It'll remind you you've got to interact with them. When people comment on your post, please respond to them. Okay. That's going to up your engagement. It's going to up you in people's feeds by doing that. Also, go ahead and comment on other people's posts, right? That in general, it's going to get people to notice you. Okay. And so here are, let me just show you real quick, examples of two posts I really like, and then I will share with you tons of ideas of different content buckets, and then we'll hop because, oh, and by the way, per Poma's recommendation, next co-working/live coaching session, which is of course every Thursday, I'm going to make it longer because today replaced yesterday's. So and we want to be sharing our LinkedIn's. I want to give edits in real time. I want to, give my feedback on content. So we're going to make next Thursday, right? So next co-working session, it's going to be an hour and a half instead of an hour. Let me go ahead and stop this share and start a new share just to show you real quick. A good, oops. Do you see, just want to confirm, do you see Jay Klaus's post right here?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So, first sentence that he has right here, it's really catchy. I asked 2,426 people why they didn't buy my product, which by the way, when you're scrolling through, you only see the first sentence of somebody's post or the first, it can be a longer sentence than this, but you really got to make that first sentence catchy. Again, I can do edits on your content. I don't want to intimidate you with it though. I'd rather you just get something out there. But if we're going to analyze a good post, this is a good post. Another reason this is a good post is look, he tagged somebody in it. Now that person, it's going to notify them. They're probably going to interact with it and all of their followers will see it, right? So see if there's a way that you can organically tag somebody in your post. You also can see how he broke it up. It's very easily, he included an image. You certainly don't have to. It was also pretty vulnerable, right? Like explaining to people why he didn't buy the product. But here's the thing it's also doing. It's showing people that he cares, that he has a product. First of all, look, 300 plus creators bought it. Okay. Well, now I'm interested potentially as a prospective customer. So he's kind of not bragging about himself, but using this angle, backdooring me into understanding what he does for a living, right? And his product. Let me just look at another. He also has another one real quick that I just want to share that's quite good. He's somebody in general, if you're interested in content, he studies content creators and then distills best practices through his podcast and products. So good person. If you don't have much time, like just follow him. Here's another, no, wait, let's do not that one. Here we go. This might be transferable to you all. So first sentence here, more than 90% of the interviews, and look, he tagged his own podcast, right, are scheduled through cold emails. Here's my framework. So this is a bit of his process that can be helpful to other people. Clear subject line, start personal, make it clear ask, give context, like, look at this. And then here is a way to engage you. What do you think? Would you respond positively to this email? And then, by the way, he's selling something. So he's, puts in the comments, this is getting into like next level stuff, where if you have links you want people to go to, you actually don't want to put those links in your post. You want to put them in your comment. But, there's another thing that you might notice people are doing here. See how they're using names in their comments, that he's responding to him, but also using his name. And then Jay, in response to this comment, he's using his name. So you just do @name. That also juices the algorithm. So this is all strategic stuff. Okay. And by the way, in the comments that this person, he gives his 2 cents right here. He's being helpful, right? But the reason he's doing this is he wants me, the person who's, a follower of Jay Clouse, to check him out. Because guess what he does? He helps founders launch profitable podcasts. This guy, in the way that he's commenting, is advertising himself. Again, I know that these people are they're running their own businesses and that's not you all here, but I think the message you've gotten from me over and over again, and Hannah shares it, is that you really are a business, even if you work for somebody else. So please take all of this and filter it through who are you trying to appeal to, your target audience, and what are the things you want them to know about you and what you're good at, right? Again, the problems that you solve. Let's take a look. It's all creative brainstorming, creative mindset. Let me just do, now I'm going to share my new screen with you. Not new screen, old screen. There we go. All right. So we're going to go through the next 2 slides of content ideas, and just off the bat, write down or just, make a note for yourself, the ones that I think feel easiest to you and resonate most, because that's the ones you're going to have the highest likelihood of actually following through. Lots of stuff here. I am going to send all the slides and the recording and next steps to you tomorrow. So that's Friday. So if this is something you're feeling really excited and it's, inspired to work on right now, go ahead and take a screenshot of this slide and the next one. Share industry news accompanied by your own insights, right? Offer your opinion on a current event, share a personal goal related to your career development, write a mini case study about a recent project you're proud of, share a quote that inspires you, share books that you've read, podcasts, ask for recommendations, success stories about people you've worked with, important lesson you've learned in your career journey, maybe photos of your workspace, advice to people in their careers, give public kudos to, a coworker who's been doing great work, or maybe somebody who's inspired you, highlight career milestones, call out an interesting data point or related to your niche, share a personal development story or tips on personal growth. You don't have to be an expert on this, by the way. Like you're living your life, so you're an expert on your life. So that's good. Share yourself, you know? Provide a list of tools and resources you frequently use, right? If you're like obsessed with focusmate.com, share it, tag them, say why. That's helpful to another person, right? Email newsletters you like, ask a thought-provoking question, right? These are all good thought starters. Take a screenshot. And really my challenge to you, like I said, it's just once a week. Don't overthink it. Like it's just about building the habit. Then you can maybe get into, more of that AP stuff. But if it's helpful to begin in the way Hannah suggested in terms of like the buckets of what are the buckets of categories of content you think you'd like to share, and then coming up with an idea per bucket, go for it. But I don't want you to overthink it. We're not creating a magazine here. Like you're not becoming a quote content creator. You're just being more visible and doing that consistently. Like I said, it's, short is good. We want short. So that you're just in the feed. So when I'm scrolling the feed, hopefully I'm seeing each one of you, okay, in my feed if you've connected with me. And by the way, tag me. Hey, this was inspired by Claire, or, if there's another person who made a suggestion to you, tag them. Like it's going to get into my feed. I'm going to comment on it. And then that's going to show up to my followers, right? This is all, something I also really encourage people do when they're hearing my lessons, when I'm teaching at companies. I say, you're getting my slides afterwards, but you should take a screenshot now of what you find valuable. You should use that in a post. Hey, there's a tip on this slide. I really liked it. And tag me. I have a lot of followers. I'm going to comment on it. It's all strategic. And also, by the way, transparently between, you all and me, that's strategic on my end, because now they're going to share my content and it's telling people y'all should hire Claire, right? See how we're all doing this? And none of that I think is cringy, because I'm hoping my slide that they share is valuable, right? We're here to help people while we help ourselves. They're not mutually exclusive, and it doesn't have to be cringy, and it doesn't have to be hard. However, when you're getting started, of course, that's going to be difficult. You're doing something new, but then you'll get the habit of it and you'll find it enjoyable. And I'm actually finding my wisdom walks enjoyable. Next steps. All I need you to do is your banner, your photo, your headline, your about, your work experience, skills, recommendations, interests. I just want you to follow companies. Don't do it yet. Actually, don't do any of this yet in your LinkedIn. Just do it in a Google Doc. Share it with me. For your content, map out schedule for 1 month. So that's 4 posts. That's it. 4 posts, and then make at least just 1 post that you put online and tag me. Please do this in the next 7 days or before, so that in our next co-working live coaching session, I've already seen these and I can pull out, or I'll talk to you beforehand and ask your permission to make sure you're there if we want to do a live share. So I'm in your Google Doc giving edits and everybody can see it. But hopefully that means next 7 days, by the end of the 7 days, you have an updated kick-ass LinkedIn profile. And that means you can actually start networking and getting in those jobs, which is the point of all of this. Thank you as always. We're 15 minutes over. Let me take a look at the chat. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, amazing tip. I'm putting the link in the comments, not the post. Yeah. Yep. It's because any time that you link in a post in LinkedIn, it's telling people to go away from LinkedIn, right? Because they're clicking out and LinkedIn doesn't like it. So they're going to penalize your post and you're going to get pushed down in the algorithm. Yeah. Yep. Carrie says, just a heads up, sometimes LinkedIn will bury the link when you put it in the comments. I think you can pin it. But I can't remember. I used to do this. I got to get back to posting more on LinkedIn now. I think you can pin it. If you're the first person to comment on it, I think you'll stay up there. Should. But, Carrie, posted something in there. Okay. Well, I have more resources, I believe, for you in terms of LinkedIn content posting if you're interested. I just didn't want to overwhelm you or make you feel like this, now you have to like change your job, because what y'all do for a living is not technically content posting, right? Presumably you do other things like director of engineering. However, I think it was Poma who said, getting her voice out there is going to help representation. Okay. It's going to show people, for her first generation immigrant, et cetera. Like, again, you don't need to necessarily post anything super vulnerable or even super insightful, or It's just your face and name associated with content in your field. Just that in and of itself is valuable for people to see. You never know who you're going to reach and who you're going to inspire until you put it out there consistently. They're going to get in touch with you because of it. I've seen it work for me, seen it work for my clients, obviously works for Hannah. And I know what she does is quite big now with, all these followers, but she did not do that before. Like it was a side thing. Really, it was a side thing. Question from Lee. So if people tag you for job openings, does your whole network see it? I don't know. That's a really good question. Carrie says, just from my point of view, I've never seen folks come up on my feed, only reactions. That is a good, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know the answer. I'm not sure. I would Google that exact copy and paste that exact question into Google and see what you find. Yeah, that's a very good question. And also, Lee, I saw your DM that you watched the movie that I recommended and you loved it. So glad. Such a good movie. It's called Shiva Baby, if anyone else wants to watch it. It's very funny. All right. So we are now 20 minutes over. So I will let us all go. Thank you for those who stuck around, and apologies for the technical difficulties. First time doing it. And hopefully we'll get the guests live for future ones. I know one person I'm going to have to speak to you is actually already in our group because she got a job through networking and it was amazing. And it's a wonderful story. And she's going to tell it when we're in that module. Appreciate you all. You'll get the slides, next steps, hyperlinks that were in the slides. And I updated the calendar invite to make it an hour and a half for our next session, but please do get me a Google Doc with your updates to your LinkedIn. Okay. So not your current LinkedIn, but the updated version. Share it with me if you want if you want me to edit you, and also come to the session if you want to do it live. I'll pick a few people. Really appreciate you all as always. Thank you. Thank you. And we got this. All right. See you soon.